My spouse has a completely different family, in another state. The double life discovery. I found the second phone on a Tuesday. Not by snooping, I want to be clear about that. I wasn't the kind of person who went through my husband's things. I trusted him, or I thought I did. The phone was in the glove compartment of his truck, which I was searching for the vehicle registration. Because we'd gotten pulled over and I needed to know where he kept it. It was a simple, practical moment that led to the most complicated revelation of my life. The phone was a basic Android, the kind you could buy at any convenience store for cash. No contract, no bill, completely untraceable. And when I turned it on, which I probably shouldn't have, but I did, it lit up with dozens of text messages. The first one I read was from someone named Heather. "The kids miss you. When are you coming home?" My hands went numb. I sat in the driver's seat of David's truck staring at that message, trying to make sense of it. David was always home. David worked from our house as a software consultant. David was here, with me, and our kids. I scrolled through more messages. There were photos. A woman who looked vaguely familiar in that way where you can't quite place someone. 2 children. A boy who looked about 8 and a girl who looked about 6. They were in a house I'd never seen before. They were calling David Dad. My phone rang in my hands and I nearly dropped it. David. It was David calling from inside the house. "Hey babe," he said. "Did you find the registration? I can just go pay the ticket." I couldn't speak, my throat had closed up. "Hello, are you there?" His voice was getting concerned. "Rachel, are you okay?" "Who is Heather?" I asked. The line went silent. Not the comfortable silence of someone thinking, the suffocating silence of someone who has been caught. "What?" he said, but his voice had changed. It was higher, tighter. "Who is Heather?" I repeated, each word a separate sentence. "Rachel, let me explain." I hung up the phone. I sat there in the truck holding the burner phone, scrolling through what appeared to be months of correspondence between my husband and a woman named Heather. Casual texts about school pickups, about a mortgage payment, about weekend plans, about love. "I love you," Heather had written 3 days ago, and David had written back, "I love you too." More than anything, I don't know how long I sat there. It felt like seconds and hours simultaneously. David came out to the truck, and I've never seen a man's face go through so many emotions so quickly. Surprise, then fear, then resignation. "How did you—" he started. "Get in," I said. I wasn't yelling. Somehow that made it worse. If I had been screaming, it would have felt more appropriate to the magnitude of what was happening. He got in the passenger seat, and I held up the phone. "Explain," I said. David's hands were shaking, literally trembling. He gripped the edge of the seat so hard his knuckles turned white. "I have been living a double life," he said. And those words, those 6 words, changed everything. Not because I didn't suspect it. I did. But hearing him say it out loud, hearing him confirm that the man I had married, the man I had built a life with, the man who had fathered 2 children with me, was living an entire separate existence with another woman and 2 more children. It made it real in a way that nothing else could. Before we continue, we would like to thank all of you who support us by subscribing, liking, and sharing our content. The only appreciation we ask of you is that you subscribe, like, and share this video if you are not yet one of our subscribers. Thank you. "How long?" I asked. "Since before we got married," he said quietly. "Heather and I, we were together first. We have been together for 12 years. We have 2 children together. I met you 5 years ago, and I thought I could live both lives. I thought I could balance it. I felt like I was going to vomit. Balance it? I love you both," he said, which might have been the most offensive thing he could have possibly said in that moment. I couldn't choose, so I didn't. "You made the choice," I said coldly. "You chose to lie. You chose to maintain this elaborate deception. You chose to have me believe that you were faithful. You chose to bring 2 children into a marriage built on a complete fucking lie." He didn't respond. What could he possibly say that would make this better? I got out of the truck. I walked back into the house and I looked at my life with new eyes. The photos on the wall of David and me on our wedding day. A lie. The videos of him holding our son when he was born. He had held another child in another state the same way. The years we had spent building a life together, planning a future, talking about having more children. All of it was a performance. I called a divorce lawyer that night. I documented everything. The burner phone, the messages, the photos. I took screenshots of everything before David could delete it or explain it away. He tried to talk to me. He cried. He said he had never meant to hurt me. He said he wanted to work things out. He said he needed therapy. He said a lot of things. But none of it mattered, because he had made a choice every single day to maintain this deception. He had actively, deliberately, continuously lied to me for 5 years. The next week was a nightmare of revelations. As I dug deeper, I discovered that David wasn't even his real name with Heather. With her, he went by Marcus. He had a completely different job history, a different set of friends, a different personality. When he was with me, he was David, introverted, home-focused, devoted to his work from home. When he was with her, which turned out to be every 3rd week when he told me he was at software conferences, he was Marcus. Extroverted, adventurous, the kind of guy who took his kids to theme parks and went on weekend trips. I discovered that he had been sending money to Heather, significant amounts, thousands of dollars, while telling me we needed to watch our spending because of market fluctuations in his consulting business. I discovered that there was a 3rd phone, and possibly a 4th identity, a woman in Colorado who thought she had been dating him for the past year. My lawyer's face when I told her about the Colorado woman was unforgettable. "He might be a serial bigamist," she said. "This isn't just infidelity, this is criminal fraud." The police got involved. They opened an investigation. It turned out that David, or Marcus or whatever his real name was, had committed identity fraud on a significant scale. He had taken out credit cards in false names. He had opened bank accounts using stolen Social Security numbers. He had constructed an entire financial infrastructure designed to hide his multiple lives. Before we continue, we would like to thank all of you who support us by subscribing, liking, and sharing our content. The only appreciation we ask of you is that you subscribe, like, and share this video if you are not yet one of our subscribers. Thank you. I had to testify in front of a grand jury about the timeline of our relationship. I had to detail every lie he had told me. I had to admit that I had been so foolish that I hadn't even suspected something was wrong until I literally found a 2nd phone. But the hardest part was telling my children. My son was 10. My daughter was 8. They had to learn that their father, the man who had helped them with homework, who had attended their school plays, who had tucked them in at night, was a liar. That he had another family. That he had chosen another life over the one he had built with us. My daughter asked if it was her fault, if he had left because she wasn't good enough. That question broke something in me. The collateral damage of his deception extended far beyond me. It destroyed the security my children had in the world. It made them question their worth, their lovability, their fundamental right to be known and loved by their father. The prosecution was willing to make a deal. David pleaded guilty to identity fraud and bigamy. He received a sentence of 4 years, though he was eligible for parole after 2 with good behavior. The divorce was finalized within 6 months. I retained primary custody. He was ordered to pay substantial child support, though given that his financial life was completely fictional, enforcement was complicated. The prosecutor froze his assets and seized the money he had been sending to Heather. That money went into an account for our children's education. Heather contacted me once. She was devastated. She had believed everything David or Marcus had told her. She had built a life with him. She had planned a future with him. And she discovered, through the police investigation, that she had never actually been married to him, that their entire relationship was built on stolen identity. We compared notes. We discovered that David had told me different stories about his family. He had told Heather different stories about me. He had told the woman in Colorado different stories about both of us. He had constructed elaborate narratives tailored to each of us, designed to explain why he couldn't commit fully, why he had to travel constantly, why he couldn't introduce us to his family. The cruelty of it was staggering. I spent 2 years in therapy processing the trauma of what he had done. My therapist helped me understand that this wasn't about me being stupid or naive. This was about me being a person with normal assumptions about how the world works. I assumed that the man I married was being honest about his fundamental identity. I assumed that when he said he loved me, he wasn't simultaneously saying it to 2 other women. These weren't character flaws on my part. They were normal, healthy assumptions about human relationships. But I also had to acknowledge the ways I could have paid more attention. I could have questioned his frequent trips. I could have noticed the inconsistencies in his stories. I could have demanded more transparency. I couldn't have known, but I could have known better. 3 years after David's arrest, I filed a restraining order. He had been released on parole after serving 18 months, and he tried to contact me. He said he wanted to apologize. He said he wanted to rebuild his relationship with our children. He said he had found religion and had been reborn as a better person. I didn't believe him, and I wasn't willing to risk my children's emotional stability on the possibility that he had changed. The court agreed. The restraining order was issued. He is not permitted to contact me, my children, Heather, or her children. He is required to pay child support, which is automatically deducted from his wages. He is required to attend therapy. I've rebuilt my life. Not the life I thought I was going to have with David. A different life. A real life. One based on honesty and self-awareness and healthy boundaries. I met someone 4 years after David's arrest. Someone who knew everything about what had happened to me. Someone who was transparent about his own past. Someone who didn't make excuses. We've been together for 3 years now, and every single day, I'm grateful for the difference between a man who is trustworthy and a man who is just a good liar. My children are in therapy. They're doing well, considering. They have a relationship with their father. Limited and supervised, but it exists. They're learning that people can be complicated, that someone can love you and still hurt you, that trust is something you have to earn and maintain. I think about David sometimes. Not with longing or regret, but with a kind of clinical curiosity. How does someone construct that elaborate of a lie? What is the psychological profile of a man who can maintain multiple identities simultaneously? What does it feel like to be so disconnected from reality that you believe you can live multiple lives without consequences? I'll never know the answers to those questions. What I do know is that I survived it. My children survived it. We rebuilt our lives on a foundation of truth and authenticity. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is trust your instincts. And sometimes, even when you do everything right, sometimes people are just liars. And the lie is so elaborate that you can't see it until you're standing in the rubble of it. But you can rebuild. You can create something real. And you can learn that the life you build for yourself is infinitely more valuable than the life someone else builds for you while lying about who they are. That's the real story. Not the betrayal, though that's devastating, but the resurrection that comes after. The strength you didn't know you had. The clarity that comes from having everything stripped away and realizing you can survive it. I survived it, and I'm stronger for it.